Hi, welcome back to the A&S Way.
In today's video, we're hoping that you've watched the previous 3 time-lapse videos that Selena made me do, but I actually ended up really loving them in the end. I don't really watch that much
I
time-lapse.
really like them, so I said to Ant, when we get our backyard done, we have to film the time lapse because it's for me. I just personally love watching the before and after and the transformation.
So if you haven't watched those 3, go and watch those first and then come back to this video. So in this video, we're going to cover off how we ended up with the backyard that we've got. So from the dirt, which I'll insert a picture now, to the finished yard, and I'll insert a picture now. And so we're going to talk through that process, the cost, the hassle, and I don't think this is a hassle in particular with landscaping. I think this is just how Vegas operates. We've got friends here now that have suffered the same issues. Doesn't matter what you do, everything is hard work here. No?
Yes, definitely. So
painful.
it took us a while just to even select who we was going to go with, get the design right. So we're going to talk through all of that in this video.
First up, we're going to talk about how we got the contractors out to price up and give us estimates, which was a problem in and of itself.
And I have to say, I didn't really get involved in that much. I think you looked up people either by somebody referring and recommending somebody who was really great, or you looked up reviews online.
I think I used Google, Yelp.
And in the end, we had how many companies?
I think in the end 4.
Yeah, I couldn't work out if it was 4 or 5 in the end. But
It
I
was
think
probably
it was about
4 or 5, and then I think I probably discounted some of the ones that were just terrible or didn't get back to us. And then in the end, we had one return to redo a quote that they had already done because we had changed our mind during this process.
When we started the process, we definitely thought we wanted to go for a small pool or a spool. Is it called a spool?
When we started the process, I was looking at pools. So right at the beginning, 2 years ago, before we moved here, I'd priced up how much it cost to get a full landscaping and a pool, and it was around 125,000, which seemed reasonable with a full-size pool, little jacuzzi, and the landscaping. As prices increased, we pulled back on that because we realised that in order to get that, it's probably going to cost 160, 170.
At least,
so we scaled that back to a spool in the
Yes.
end.
And the other thing, so you're probably wondering, and somebody commented on the last video, where is the pool? Why we didn't end up doing that?
I just told them.
Well, is it purely the price?
Yes.
Yes.
Because we can't get any loans because we're here. It's
Yeah, that's
100%
true,
purely the price. We have to
Yeah,
pay for everything
that's
in
true.
cash, and we don't have 170,000 in cash left after buying an
Yeah.
apartment 2 years ago at this
Also,
place.
Yeah, so only thing I would add to that, though, for me is, yes, it is. If the price was a lot cheaper, we would have probably gone for it. But also, we didn't know how long we were going to be in this home for. So I honestly think things would have been different, and
But
I think we would have just delayed getting anything done to the backyard.
If somebody would have come and said, "Here's a pool and minor landscape for 80,000," it wouldn't have made any difference.
Well, then that would have been no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a complete no-brainer. The other aspect, though, that one thing I would say is because we didn't go for a pool, it means that we've got our backyard done a lot quicker because we didn't
That's
have to
true.
wait. And for me, I said to Anne, I don't know how long we're going to be here, and knowing that we got this done this quickly and now we can already enjoy this is a huge benefit over getting a pool.
In terms of the 5, let's say there were 5 people that came out, 3 of them were complete trash. What would happen is they'd come out, they'd spend 20 minutes to half an hour here, agree with everything that you said, write everything down, and then it would be one of 2 things. They either didn't get back to you, or they would send you something that was 100% not what you said, literally the whole thing. So if you said, I wanted a pool, there would be no pool. If you said, I want a really small fire pit, they'd make in one case, it was genuinely, I don't know, about 18 feet, 20 feet. And I said to the guy, but we discussed this, it's just us 2. We don't have a family of 12 children. And he's like, oh, I'll get back to you. Never did. Or they'd send to the wrong email address. And it was just
Yeah, there was
painful.
There was an issue with somebody who didn't understand the difference between
commas and full stops, or periods as they call it in the US. So he was using commas in place of full
and
stops.
wondering why the email wasn't getting to Ant. So
It's painful.
and we paused after that because we'd seen the 4 companies or 5, and we were just struggling at that point with who to go for. So at that point we'd gone to Europe, and then we come back, and I was I did kind of stress out that I really wanted the landscaping done.
Yeah, I wasn't happy originally. I wasn't happy with spending the money. As we said, we had to spend out in cash.
And he reminded me of that
constantly.
Fact. He's like, oh, I wouldn't do this
I
if
wouldn't
it
have
wasn't
done
for
it.
you. I think we're spending too much money too soon. Prices are going to come down. So it did make me feel a bit like, oh, okay.
But what ended up happening was I reached out to probably the best company that had come out, done a quote for us, but the original quote was including a pool, and it was way too much. But I thought, let me see if they'll come out and just re-quote for the landscaping. And what we had actually done is a previous company that were really good. They were the best company in terms of the design. He really spent a long time, probably an hour here, writing
Measuring up, taking pictures, and honestly, the design was spot on, really.
It was exactly. They were the only company to completely nail it. Now, the reason why is, one, he spent a lot of time, took a lot of photos, kind of mapped it out with us there. They then, I think, send it off to a separate design company. So you pay $500 for this design company to design it in the way that you've described. And the ability for them to translate what we wanted onto the computer was well worth $500 because actually, it came back perfect.
Yeah, and it dealt with a lot of the frustration of the problem with even the one that we had was the design wasn't always representative of what you wanted, and the imagery wasn't great, so you wasn't really sure that you was going to get what you wanted, whereas with this company they nailed it in the design, so you felt far more confident. It's just the issue with them was trying to actually get a quote from them was very difficult. Trying to organise a time to speak to them was difficult. We would say we are available only at this time, so what do? They offer anything but that time, but don't even acknowledge that we've already said we can't do that time.
And this happened multiple times. Well, I would say rewind slightly, it took them 11 days to get our design to us.
True.
So from the point that we asked for the quote, it took 11 days to get it drawn up.
Which, the one we paid for.
Which is okay if everything happens quickly after that, but each time they weren't available for a set number of a different number of reasons. And then when we were available, they're like, oh yeah, we'll call you at this time. And then they didn't. Oh, sorry, the guys, what are you talking about? You're paying them however much, 50, 60, 70,000, who knows, and you're never available. So this is a representation of what's about to happen. So Selena's way more measured, but I don't think this applies. I'm like, absolutely not. Tell them to just go away, pack. I'm not even going to get back to them. I don't care. $500, we've got the design. Ignore them. She's like, oh, maybe we should just go in. No, I'm not going in. We've already learned this lesson here. When they start messing you around, just cut them off. That's it.
So we cut them off.
We cut them off immediately with immediate effect. Took the designs and handed it over to the company that ended up doing this. And they came out, re-quoted an obscene amount.
And it was brilliant because they came in on the day, they saw the design, they discussed the materials they would use, they brought the materials so we could either see the picture or the actual physical material. And it was so quick.
Yeah, it was.
There was just no issues, and that's exactly how we like to work. And they just seemed very honest about they were great at selling, honestly. They sold me on how amazing this was going to look, how the crew was going to come, the level of effort. And honestly, I'm always funny about people that oversell because I'm always worried because you've already set my expectation quite high. But fortunately for Vegas, I don't expect too much. But they were everything they said they would be. Fast forward now to the day that they start the work. So what was quite funny was they'd said the date that they're starting, but they didn't really say what would happen in the lead up. And
forgot about this.
And not that I expect a lot of information, so I wasn't really thinking about it. We just thought, oh, okay, they said they're going to start on Monday. We presume they're going to turn up. And what they typically do is they come out with the foreman just to walk through the design, just to make sure they're all set. And they were supposed to come on the Sunday, but I think they were delayed from another job. But what did happen on the Sunday was, or that weekend.
No, so you're missing, This is the part I forgot. About a week before they were due to start, give or take, stuff started turning up, but I didn't notice for us. And the first 4 or so pallets got delivered outside. It's not actually outside of our neighbours, but between the shared area. So I assumed they were having their yard done before ours. So I didn't even go out and check because they hadn't told us anything was turning up. So I just was like, oh, that's nice for them.
It was on the Friday, wasn't it? Just before.
The week before.
Yeah.
So I didn't go and check the pallets. I was like, that's nice for them. Shame ours hasn't turned up. And then more stuff started turning up. And then just before they were due to come out, a Bobcat dig lifter truck turned up on that weekend in the middle of the night. And then they started dropping off stuff outside our house. I'm thinking, is this ours?
So it goes out.
And it's got our name all over it, and they're blocking half the street. And I was like, oh no, they hadn't even told us. But these roads are fairly narrow, and they're not that big, and the homes are only 10 feet wall to wall apart. So there's not really much space for them to put it. We had no idea that the design that we chosen required so much material. So it started showing up before they'd even come out to assess and review the job, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, and then on Monday morning they did show up as expected, and then I think I was working, but you did the walkthrough with them to go through the design and everything.
Yeah, with the site foreman and the sales guy show up on that day just to make sure that you've got everything. They're going to build it exactly the way that you want, and to let you know that if there's any changes that you want during the build, if they've got the materials, they'll just adjust it on the fly, which is why they prefer you to be home if you can, and both of us work from home, so it worked out really well. The main sales guy is really good. He has great vision himself. They're not the best at design, as in translating that onto a computer, but in terms of what they see in their mind, it's really good. So the fact that he came out of the site foreman, I thought was a nice touch, and it kind of reassures you that they're serious about their work. And then 10 guys showed up, and then more material showed up, and then trucks started turning up.
And then we basically took over the street.
Which... You need to go and watch the other videos.
And anyone that lives here knows we did. And honestly, I think on the second day, I believe they'd even put more stuff out across our neighbours. So I felt really, really bad. And I went and spoke to them because I said, I'm so sorry. And if I can get them to move it across onto our drive, I will. But I get it, it's difficult because they still need the access. So whilst they can try blocking our side, they need to get into our side. So they're only working with so much space. So we were very happy that our neighbours were very understanding. And we will do the same back. So we get it. We've been through it now. We fully understand. You might be wondering, what if you do your design and as they're doing it, can you adjust? And we've already mentioned and said, look,
you might not be wondering that because I just told you.
No, but just to get, but I know what people are like. Some people don't listen to everything. So I'm reiterating that point. So what happened with us is we thought we were very set with our design, but the foreman would discuss. So the one thing the design doesn't do is the exact measurements of where things are coming out. And as an example, we had agreed that we wanted pavers around our covered deck and the covered deck area. And I think he discussed with Van, we'll come out 4 feet, which I know I never discussed with them, but this is where things in the design, sometimes you're not super clear. But 4 feet was quite a lot in, and it looked really funny. So they were about halfway through paving, and I'm looking at it and thinking, that looks really odd because that's a lot of paving around. And it also meant that the amount of grass that we would have had left would have been a small strip.
Yeah, it's more
abnormal.
The proportions. So at the moment, the rear raised area is probably 1/3.
Larger than...
No, not larger. It's 1/3 of the rear yard space, and then the grass is probably 1/3, and then the pavers would have been 1/3. But when you're looking out from the house, it looked disproportionate. So it looked like the grass strip was too small. And the reason for this was because that in the end, and this is where the foreman helped, he looked at it and said, your rear wall runs at an angle. There's a 2-foot difference between the right and the left side. So they wanted to make it look straight from the house. So they had to build another 2 feet out, which meant you lost space on the grassed area. So then we had to adjust according to that. And that's where what you're saying is right. They constantly, if there's something that doesn't look right to them, they'll knock on the door and be like, you said this, but
are you sure?
Are you sure?
And the thing with that was I'd already seen them putting it down, and I was speaking to Ant, and I had a bit of doubt as to whether to say anything to them, which I think is ridiculous because you should never just let something happen and then be unhappy with it. So they were about halfway through. I spoke to the foreman. He did remind me on a couple of occasions that, but your husband did say 4 feet. I said, I know he said 4 feet, but I don't think he was thinking about what 4 feet actually meant at the time. He probably just agreed. And he did double check. And I don't think that was to be, but he said this. It was more to double check that both of us were happy. So he said 4 feet, you're saying less. Are you sure? And that was all. And he was really nice about it and no issues. The guy that was laying down just had to lift them up and go back in.
There's quite a few of them that were laying down. Yeah.
And with that, we also then decided, so the original design, and we'll put this up, had planters. So around the edging, we've got the raised area and the raised planters, but then we were going to have planters down the side at the ground level. Because of the proportions, we decided that it didn't make sense to minimize on the grass and that it would look nicer just to have the strip of grass going across. So that's, again, another adjustment that we made to the design after the fact. In terms of the plants, the way that that worked was we paid for the design, but in terms of the plants, it was really up to us. So we went to the nursery with them to select, and it was really our budget of what we wanted to spend, but what we get is their discount at the place. And that just allows people really just to go with what they want. So if you have a really small budget on plants, then you can spend anything from a few $100s. In the end, we spent, how much did we spend on?
I think the original bill was about $2,600,
Yeah.
but they get their discount. So I think we end up paying just under $2,100.
And that really
like 10%.
and that really does come down to the trees.
Yeah, so we something we haven't mentioned actually, which would probably help with this whole thing. So what we ended up having the quote from this company, I think the original quote was about $94,000, and I'm like, absolutely not. The previous quote we had with some of the stuff that wasn't as good was around 55. So what happened in the end is they offered a load more stuff, building up the walls, as an example, with much better brick, much better pavers for 60,000. So that's what
including the lighting as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of lighting out here and the transformers, and running 110 volt power to the rear. And in fact, I wasn't happy, as I mentioned, with the money being spent initially.
Oh, and he really did. Even
Yeah.
after we agreed on the day with them.
I was not
So we put
happy.
a 50% deposit down at that point, which that's hard to spend
Yeah.
30 grand in one go. It's like, oh, and you haven't even got anything. And then he reminded me again.
Repeatedly.
He said to me, I wouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
I'm only doing this for you.
So within that price, though, they said they can't include, it eats too much into their margin, the planting. So a lot of people have it included in the package,
Yes.
but you're going to pre-select. And I knew I wanted, or both of us actually wanted quite a lot. So when we went there, we were kind of just like, fill it up with everything we want, just get it. You're going to spend it once.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we didn't really try to restrict ourselves. The sales guy did say that some people would have spent like $600 on this, and we could definitely see there that you can definitely be well within that if
Yeah,
you don't
easily.
get such mature trees. But we really wanted to enjoy the space, and we love trees and plants. And I mean, if we had our way, we would have a whole forest back here.
Yeah, and we're still actually going to continue and buy some more, so we'll probably spend a bit more. But yeah, so I think the total we'll get to at the end, a total for the rear yard, but I think we did spend about 2,100 additional
Yes.
on plants on top of the 60,000. From start to finish, it took 11 days.
I think so, yeah.
It's not completely finished because they need to come back and seal all of the pavers and the brickwork. They did the inside of the planters and the walled areas, obviously because there's water in there, but they need to finish everything off. So there's probably going to be another day's worth of work. But generally it was complete after 11 days. I would say on average there's probably 75 to 80 man hours per day if you take the amount of people and the amount of time that they worked. So what's that, like 800, between 750 and 900 maybe man hours, plus a driver, plus some assistants that would turn up every now and again. So there was way more work than I think either of us.
I never really considered just the labor that it takes.
It's a lot.
But it's not just that. Like, I can definitely see how other companies would have taken them twice as long. So something I have to mention that we noticed, and because we filmed it, we got to see just how planned out every piece of the process was in terms of the logistics, the delivery, how they coordinated the movement of dirt from one area to the other, like all of that.
It was
coordinated.
really, seamless. It was surprising because both of us deal with process a lot at work. And what is amazing to see here is you've got one foreman and then the right-hand person, and then 6 to 8 or 9 other people, plus the driver. And there was no downtime. They took 45 minutes for lunch each day after getting here at 7 and finishing at 5.
So
6 sometimes.
So they would finish late, especially towards the end.
Yeah, and it just seemed to all flow completely naturally. The owner did tell us that I think the foreman's been with them 10 years, so they've obviously worked it out over time. So there wasn't these periods where they're like, oh, phone the truck and get this delivered and we'll just take a break. It was just constant work apart from their lunch break. So I was really surprised, and I was really surprised at how meticulous they were, and also how much the foreman cared about his work. He was so proud of it at the end.
And even for me, when I was watching them laying down, now I have no idea how things should be done, but it just looked like they were, the way they were measuring, the lining up, the amount of people it was taking them to do the dimension pavers that we've got with the different sizes. It didn't just look like a slapdash job to me, like they were just like trying to rush it.
Yeah, and I similarly have no idea, but there's definitely bits where I was watching on the camera thinking, you could easily half-ass that. So all in all, it was way more work, and I was, at that point, very pleased with the amount of money that we spent.
Finally.
I felt like I was getting really good value for money at that point.
And there was a sense of relief from me as well, because he wasn't going to let it go. He would have been like, oh, we should have just done this next year for cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. I think once you see, I wasn't sure I was going to see the value in it, not just the finished product, but if somebody come in and they had 3-4 guys on the job and they did it across 2 weeks, there's no way 60,000 would have been worth it to me. I think seeing that many people working flat out all day, I kind of see that you're getting what you pay for.
So we are definitely pleased with the work. I can't express. It's far better than what I even imagined. And if anything, I thought it'd be the opposite way around, that you imagine that you're going to have something great and it doesn't quite meet your expectations. Even though we don't have a pool, I feel that we have built a backyard for us.
You know what you've reminded me? We're getting a hot tub though. So we are having a hot tub. So we need water at some point. Yeah. Or how do you say it? Every time you say water, nobody understands
water.
English.
Water.
Yeah.
Water. Like
we say it W-A-T-A, water.
I've learned how to say it now. Sometimes I feel like I have to.
But so sorry, we're going to get a hot tub, so we will have some water in the rear yard.
And for us then, we have actually got a space where Ant has, we've got a Traeger as well, so Ant's already been smoking our meats, which have been amazing, out by the fire pit in the evening, which is great, and it is chilly now, so we have been making a lot of use of it. So once we get the hot tub, I think we've got a really good space for how we would use a backyard anyway.
And I think once that comes in, then the overall price paid will be worth it, and I think we were going to mention that. So I think with the hot tub, the landscaping, the trees and plants, the Traeger, it's probably going to be around probably about 72,000.
Yeah, I was thinking 73, but I wasn't.
Maybe 73,000.
But we'll put the exact price up with all the items that we went for. And the only thing I would say is there anything we would change in what we had done in the process? I don't think we could have changed how we went about the process, because it's really potluck when it comes to the companies that you go for. I'm personally pleased that we did this right away, or as quick as we could. And mainly because for me, there was something very unfinished about the home, walking in. And for the way that our home is, as soon as you come in, the first thing you're actually seeing is the backyard. And just seeing that dirt lot just made it look unfinished. The other aspect is it gets very, very dusty and dirty whilst they're doing it. And to go through that a year later, once you've got your house all nice, I wouldn't have liked as much. So it's quite nice to do this now and get it out of the way, then leave it to a later stage, from my perspective.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad Selena pushed it through now, only because of the job that was done and what we ended up with, and the fact we're getting a hot tub. I think if it was any lower quality, then my thing would have been we should never have done it. But we've got what we wanted, more than we wanted.
Do you think the only thing you would have done differently is running so we've got 110?
Yeah, this is a whole different thing, but again, the US is the US, so they decided for whatever reason that 110 volts is the way to go, knowing that ovens and various other appliances in the house required 220 and now electric cars. So I don't understand why we used 110 here. And the thing that I did not realize until I thought about actually get a hot tub is most hot tubs are 220, and we don't have any 220. In order to do it, we would have to get another, I think it's like a higher ampage breaker, have 220 running, and then somehow get it out to the rear. And I do not want this dug up again. No. So we've had to find a company that will do a 110 core, which means the hot tub takes a day or so to heat up in the cold rather than 8 or 9 or 10 hours. But it's no major.
No major, but something definitely for you to consider if you are going for it and you've got that option to put in. We didn't think about it until afterwards.
Yeah.
And when we do get our hot tub, we'll definitely share that with you. So that is our landscaping process from beginning to end. So we moved in July and it is now the end of November and we have our backyard completely done, or garden for the UK folks back home that wonder why we call it a backyard. We're really happy. Let us know if you've got any questions about the process that we didn't cover in the comments below. Don't forget to watch the time-lapse videos if you haven't. I love them. And don't forget to hit the like button and please subscribe.